So, go, Jack, go.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Let's Drone Out, or we are on his kitchen table. But anyway, tonight you are joined by not Andrew / Frank. I hope you get better, buddy, and win the war against the mouse. We are joined by Andy RC.
Good evening, everybody.
Simon Newton.
Hello, cheers.
How is your kitchen table?
I'm not on it because the kitchen table is full of kids arguing. So
I've never seen Simon without. It's either strong tea or strong wine.
It's strong coffee or strong wine.
Oh, sorry, coffee is it?
And it's too late for coffee. So cheers.
Tonight's beverage is
Argentinian Cabernet Sauvignon Syrah blend called Dada, and it's very good.
I'm drinking antifreeze in celebration because they've caught the cat killer.
How have you got one of those mugs? That's not fair.
Why do you want this mug?
Well, I
bought it for a guy who doesn't appreciate Simon, and he wouldn't accept the mug. So you can have it if you want it.
When I was first starting out my channel, like Simon's channel on the kitchen table, it was like. That was the starting point, and I was like, this is a great format and stuff, and so it was one of the
the whole bloke talking bollocks was a great format.
Not
pissed.
It's what we all aspire to.
Yeah, but you made a lot of videos back then, and your channel was growing incredibly, and
there was a lot to say back then.
I can remember when you hit, I can't remember the subscriber number, but no one had seen what you looked like. And then like you hit a certain number of subscribers and then you showed your face and like, I was like,
painless
lost half of them overnight. Yeah.
No, you didn't. You did not lose half of them overnight. I lose half of mine overnight just for saying I once flashed a picture of Trump for a joke in a video. I lost 80 subscribers just from doing that.
Yeah.
Carry on, Jack.
We were also joined by.
Are you laughing because I don't shut the hell up? This is what I do.
We're joined by my little Tony.
Bonjour.
You're pointing at the. Did Tony see what you were pointing at?
Yes, I don't care. He just wishes I was gay so he could try to bone me.
Bum you, Tony.
Well, whatever.
Bum. The term is bum. Fun in your bum.
Ain't gonna happen.
And Barry Kitten.
Hello.
Disclaimer: we should just read that before we even start talking.
Any views expressed by any guests on the show are personal and may not reflect the views of the hosts or any participant of the show. Please ignore all of us. We're all idiots.
Brilliant.
And I'm Brighton to Fly. So that's. I don't know whether you've ever watched this show before. Sorry.
I have.
I really apologise.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I have to say that so far it's living up to expectations. I'm neither shocked nor disappointed.
Brilliant. Well, that's how we like it.
So the last time I saw you was at the last UK drone show, which probably might be the last one. Because I, for a laugh, tried some of the email addresses of the UK drone. They all bounce back. So I wouldn't be surprised if later on this year the domain goes back into the ether. But you were at the CAA stand?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Do you work for the CAA? Would you like to repeat what you said before the show started?
Yeah, no, so I don't work for the CAA. I'm not employed by the CAA, but the CAA, I think, and you'll remember from those halcyon days back in 2013, 14, when there was an awful lot to say about drones every 5 minutes, which is why there's an awful lot of videos and why recently not an awful lot. One of the things I always used to say right from the start was, I was promoting doing the right thing. Whether you agree with it or whether you don't, there was a whole bunch of aviation law that you had to comply with. I used to fly microlights. I'm a lapsed private pilot, so I always had sort of one foot in that kind of. And I remember doing a video where I suggested if you've just bought your Phantom, maybe it's worthwhile before you go out and hoon it around the country. So I just check in a few things, a few little pre-flight bits to make sure there's going to fall off or the prop. I remember getting a comment from someone underneath from America going, "Hey, dude, it isn't a 737, man. Just chill out." And I said, "Well, no, but you can obviously afford 1,200 quid to plummet to the ground and smash to smithereens. I'd just like to check that it isn't going to do that." But I've always sort of had that just think about it a little bit. Don't be a dickhead is kind of the summary of what we've done.
What we've been saying all along.
Exactly.
That's Jack's magic word.
Exactly.
Don't be a dickhead and don't be on fire.
Yep. That's my 2 rules of flying.
We sort of break the fire rule, though, to be fair. Don't
Well, we haven't actually, because
No,
we've had no one giving us any money to set fire to anything. So
I've got
if you're out there and you want to donate to help us,
I've got
please.
all these files.
Burn
We're
fund.
backed up with fireworks, but we've had no donations for a while. So if you want to donate, please do.
10p will do, to be honest. Like,
Let 'em
if you
all off in
notice,
one
we
go.
haven't any donations, so Frank's like, I can't deal with this anymore.
We didn't have donations because Hangouts screwed up on us, though, right?
Yeah,
well,
last couple of ones.
Last week it was all right, wasn't it?
And then last week, but it was a serious one, People donate for Jack to say something stupid. So, it's the unserious ones where you'll get the most donations,
Yeah.
I'm
I
not
spent.
sure unserious is a word, but I like it. We're going to run with that.
It's a northern term.
I'm taking apart this LiPo battery, so this show might get interesting.
Are you doing it with a nail?
Yes, Mikey. Thank you, Mikey.
Just be very
Right.
careful because that very professional looking pop shield, I reckon, is very flammable.
No, it's made of metal.
Made of metal. It's already. It's
It's been on fire. It
I've
seems to survive.
burnt through a few of them in my day.
It's so nice of you to invite this filthy casual on. It's so lovely.
I know. Well, I mean, someone's got to, because you're a traitor to the old, pilots, because you fly the old dronos, and then you abandon your show to Ollie. I think that's his name, and
I know.
to
Well,
do the UK drone show.
I did.
So
I did.
Is that the story? Because I when I
is it Ollie?
When I-
Yeah, Ollie,
Ollie.
Mr. Oliver O'Brien, who was the founder, and so the story behind that is he and I think he pitched it just right, because I don't know if you remember the buzz around the first couple of them, whether the show went well or not, it's irrelevant, but there was a lot of interest in it. So he picked the right time to get into drones. He spotted the market point, and he just approached me as some old bloke on YouTube and said, "Could you give us some advice, some help? Could you let us know what is, have you got any contacts?" Because obviously by that point people were sending me stuff. I thought, well, this is quite a good idea, and I did suggest to him that you want to kind of embrace as many parts of the hobby as you can, and actually maybe try and make it so that we don't get that whole, these bloody new drones, they're all peeping toms and they've all got their snapbacks on backwards flying through power stations.
Whoa.
That kind of stuff.
Oh, that's a big one.
Sorry, we got to stop you there. Wynne Davis, legend.
Right, Jack, set your hair
Yeah,
on fire.
definitely
That's
need to
funny.
light 2 at the same time, Jack, and sing happy birthday to Ash at the same time, because it's
We
his
should.
birthday.
Who donate? Oh, Win. Hey, thank you, buddy.
We should explain to
I'll,
Simon. We've got super chat, so when somebody donates, Jack sets off.
We
Is
cut
that-
everyone off and then set fire to things.
But we'll
And
come
then
back to your stuff.
This is what all you new young YouTubers understand. I mean, back in my day, there wasn't anything like
No, there was just a box, a kitchen table, and occasionally
some
the
wine.
cat taking a shit in the corner.
I
was a
think
dog.
both
was a
myself
dog.
and Tony Result are not youngsters. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
Right.
Especially Tony, he's really young.
Younger than you. There you go. Happy birthday, Ash.
Quick,
Droning on.
Screen grab.
Thank you, Wynne, for your generous donation.
What are you
We have-
doing, Jack? Don't do not.
Take a screen grab them, put it on the LDO, hashtag LDO.
I love how we've
Right
got
out.
Oh,
Simon
this
on.
tastes really bad.
We've got Simon on to talk about safety. Jack's got 2 fireworks and a lipo in his mouth.
Hey, it's in the
Hell.
privacy of his own dungeon. He can do what he likes.
That's it.
Dungeon is the right word.
Hang
The
on.
drone
Oh,
dungeon.
no, you
Sex
need the screen.
dungeon.
You need the screen grab of that. Hang on.
You
Someone,
can have that one.
someone send that to me, please.
I
You
like
can-
that.
Thank
can-
you very much, Win.
You can
Hopefully
screen
we'll
grab
see you
it.
soon.
This one's got a little bit extra life in it.
Yeah, I wonder if Wynn's going to Weston because he came last year, didn't he? Wynn, are you answering the chat? You come in. I think I might have spoken to him actually.
Why don't you use the chat and then at him? Thank you, buddy.
Because
That
I can
never
say
works
to
for
I
me.
can say to him now, Wynn, are you going to Weston Park? Answer in the chat, please. We'll hang out.
Yep.
It was cool to hang out last year.
No, that should help keep Frank sane.
I've also got
Yep,
rollerblade.
Saturday. You'll
I've
be
got-
there Saturday, so see
Oh,
you Saturday.
I've got rollerblades as well as a skateboard this time. So there you go.
Are you rollerblading?
Well, I've got rollerblades in the car, but I never use them because a 30-something on rollerblades just screams. It's
I've
like
just
a-
come out and I need really short shorts and a very tight pink t-shirt.
I
Yeah,
don't.
it depends. Do you have like glitter hot pants and a little
Hot
pink
pants
top
is where
that you
it's
do
at,
it with?
Yeah, hot pants is the thing.
I don't enjoy exercise unless it's something. So I have to be
Going up and
rollerblading.
down very fast.
I have to be. I have to be rollerblading, or I have to be playing the drums. But rollerblading, yeah, maybe I can do some rollerblading at Weston Park. And
Why
not,
don't you do rollerblading while playing the drums? Now that is what you need to do to keep
Virtual
it.
drumsticks, you know the ones.
Yeah,
that work?
exactly. In the air while rollerblading. in the
anyways,
park.
we
Wait.
cut Simon
Simon
off.
off.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Simon.
Ollie,
Yeah,
You're-
so blah blah blah.
best of both worlds.
Yeah, blah. So the first one, I wasn't involved at all, and he just said, "Oh, thanks for your help. Would you like a stand?" And I went, "What? Yeah, all right, whatever." And that was a bit freaky because there were like people, queuing for selfies, and that really freaked me out. And that was the beginning of the end, to be honest.
I stuck a sticker of a penis in your lunchbox.
There were many stickers of many body parts. Some on my back. That was the second year one though. And actually Ollie and his business partner said to me, "Oh, do you want to come on board more formally for the next one?" And I sort of said, I thought about it and went, "Yeah, okay," because this could be. I think we learnt a few things and other bits and pieces. And and I think the second one was it looked better. There were some things that were better about it. There were some things that didn't work. I thought the racing in the separate hall was pretty damn cool. But then after that, we just had some very pleasant differences of opinion about the direction and sort of just parted ways on a very friendly and amicable basis.
Wasn't the second one in conjunction with some gaming event like Insomnia, or is that something else?
That was a separate thing. So there was a move from Insomnia, the gaming festival, who were owned by Game, who look like they're about to be bought by Matey Boy from Sports Direct at the moment.
Oh God, not again. He's
everything, isn't he? Pies, yeah. So they said, look, they were again trying to sort of. It's one of these festivals where you pay a big upfront ticket price to go for 4 days, and so you expect to be entertained. So they wanted to bring on some new stuff, and they said, "This drone racing has appeared in the newspapers a bit. Can we put something on?" And they wanted to do it as a sort of demo. We thought that'd be great, get a crowd in. But for the first year, they wanted it not with any proper spectators. So it was in a separate hall on its own in the dark at the far end with occasional VIPs coming in.
That's normally what happens with drone racing in any event, isn't it?
Well, exactly. And we all know the best part of it is the flying and not the watching. But, if they were going to make a move of it, it looked immense. It was brilliant. But again, I don't think anyone could work out a way to make it look sexy for an audience so that they sort of get into it. I think people thought, "Oh, it's the latest thing. We must have it. We must say we've got it." And no one had a clue how to actually then take it and make a spectacle of it that people would get. If you fly, you get it. If you don't, you need to be sort of shown what it's about, and even then, it's really difficult, isn't it? You know this. It's very difficult to see what's going on. It's over so quick. You need really good commentary. You need really good secondary screens. Yada 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 yada, and all that. You know,
it's not a visual spectacle is the issue, like an air show is with, or the Large Model Association, which is its biggest issue.
Unless they're big ones.
Yeah, unless they're big, but you can't really fly those in.
Not indoors. No.
I'd be surprised if you could fly an X-Class in that space, you know. So that's its issue, being indoors. I absolutely loved the NEC show this year. It was the first one that I went to, and I was trying to sort of chase you around, Simon, because I was being like a bit of a fanboy. I saw you I saw you like vlogging, and I was trying to photo bomb you, like
What?
Photo
bomb. Okay. Sorry.
Anyways, I met you briefly, but you were chatting to, was it a guy from the military or something like that?
Somebody far more important, probably.
Yeah. Oh well, that's
more
not
than Andy LC. I don't think there is anyone more important.
It may have been somebody from the military, but in fact, because the thing about that was the guy, and it was really interesting. And this came out again at an event. I was at Duxford last weekend, which is where I caught this. So Duxford, you know the Imperial War Museum. No, it's in Cambridgeshire. At Duxford, it's the Imperial War Museum's like airfield where they got big hangars full of warbirds, and they also put on regular air shows. There was one last
tiger moth there. It was great.
Yeah, exactly. So there's one last weekend. It's the first air show of the season, Duxford Air Festival, I think it's called. And the CAA were there in a hangar with Nats and with others, and we had a come and have a go, kiddies, mini drone cage. Amazing, the number of people who'd never flown one before. We had queues out the door wanting to go and have a go, and the message was twofold. One, to people who hadn't known about it, that, you know, drones are good things, they're great fun. There's some rules you need to think about, and also there was a bit on the drone registration, which I'm sure we'll come to in a minute, for us to be berated by mainly fixed-wing modelers, actually. But that was really positive, and the RAF were there as well, their safety cell, and they are promoting the system whereby if you're going to fly your drone somewhere where you think there might be some low-flying military hardware, ring this number and tell them. And I thought, oh, what it means is they'll go, oh, you can't fly there because the Reds are coming through. No, if you tell, you can be anonymous, you tell the RAF where you're going to be, what time, rough location, they'll put on their system a big no-fly ring, and they'll divert all the low-flying jets and helicopters away from
That's amazing.
I could have really done with that number a couple of years ago.
But I said to them,
what were you flying the fine?
Shut up, Tony, stop talking.
But I said to them, you need to promote the fact, because a lot of people will naturally think that this is going to be you can't, we're not letting you. But as he said, it's open airspace. We all share the air. That's the whole thing about the thing. Yeah. It's just we've all got to be. So the fact that the RAF are quite happy for any person who's just going to do anything, even if it's pop up and take a photo, bit of video or bit of hooning around, you can ring a number and they will stop the tornadoes going to where you are.
That's pretty bloody amazing, isn't it?
They probably wouldn't on the Mac loop, but anywhere else. Yeah,
I think the Mac loop, you might be. But having said that, I'm not sure. I haven't looked. I think the Mac loop is in a designated military area, so you shouldn't be there anyway. But anywhere else, though, of course, as they said, as the RAF guy said, technically, if it's open airspace, military jets are allowed down to 250 feet anywhere in open airspace. And in fact, the Reds will quite often go down quite low when they're doing the summer season between, like, they hop between air stations. I live just down the road from RAF Benson. Every August, they have like a private air show for the families. Reds come right over my house, do a display, then tonk off at like 600 feet and go somewhere else.
Also, the Reds issue a NOTAM for every flight, don't they? I know this because I'm a Red Arrows geek, so yeah.
I think you're a fanboy of.
Well, I'm always like.
Where's your other hand, Andy? We said about this. If you're going to talk about
keep them up.
Both hands up.
I told you, man. Dead to me. It would take a hammer to get that going. I'm telling you.
There's two really interesting things from that little conversation there. Firstly, I didn't know that the military had. Well, That's always interesting. I didn't know the military just had the allowance to fly at like 250 wherever they liked, and also I didn't know there was a number you could call. That'd be really useful for.
It's not
most
wherever
people.
they like. They have to issue
Well, if it's-
a NOTAM, and you have to look at the NOTAMs. But I think what's important is, how do we get hold of this? What's this number?
Where's the number?
Can I add
Well,
it to our
if
chat?
I'd been organised and remembered that I was coming on, I'd have probably had it to wave at you. But in a minute, I'll disappear off into my inner sanctum and get it.
When Jack starts talking about angry wanks, then you can go in.
That's probably a good time to leave.
Because he'll go.
It
for
won't
20,
be long.
He'll go for 20 minutes on that one. So
Yeah.
you know you got time. But no, that's cool.
Oh, hello.
The other thing is choppers. Helicopters. They're a bit more vulnerable. Because of the screens on them are not so thick, etc., etc., etc. So, and also obviously, if you get an impact on a rotor blade, then it glides like a brick. So there's this kind of general. There's a general. I think there's two sides to it. There's a side of people that think, right, okay, everybody's out to get us. The hobby is being compressed. The guys I feel really sorry for, the guys who've been flying sort of like traditional fixed wing remote control for 50 years, who are suddenly going, what the fuck is all this?
Yeah.
So I really get why they are like absolutely.
They hate us.
Well, they do and they don't. I think it depends on the club. I was talking to somebody last weekend, chairman of a club of a certain age, even older than me, if you can believe it, who turned around his opening gambit when I said to him, well, do you have any pilots who fly drones as well as fixed? We said, we don't allow them in our club. We don't even allow helicopters. We're fixed wing only. And I sort of thought, well, that's fine, but where are you going to get your next generation? Because, surely,
that's the thing,
kids,
isn't it?
A small drone with some fairly good automated systems is quite a good entry level to flying remote control stuff in general, because it's easier. There isn't the sort of the price involved. You don't necessarily have to be stuck on a buddy box with some old fart for 3 hours to just be able to do a simple turn.
The biggest problem with those guys is they just haven't tried it. Because I was in a club.
Agreed.
I was in a club and we had this at Mini Air Show, because Mini Air Show was great because we had the FPV, but then we also got in I had no part to play in it. Big jets and some of the LMA guys, and Jack sort of did something like a crossover. And flew.
I like calling it cross contamination.
Cross the streams.
So there were these guys flying these big, massive petrol extra Sukhoi, 3D models, and Jack went up with his 5-inch model and flew around them, and the footage was just incredible. And then all of a sudden, these guys came over to the tent and said, right, so how do I get into this then? And I think it's just because they haven't been exposed to it. And
the Warbirds have actually just took on their first quad pilot. Jokervision is actually now their first ever quad pilot.
I wanted to ask how that happened, but that will be going very off subject. So maybe
that has happened. They've like.
I know. I saw his.
They wanted to know. They enjoyed the X-Class. They enjoyed him flying. They enjoyed everyone flying around, and now they've kind of got into it. So.
Well, I think that is a great thing.
Yeah,
for you guys, because I actually mentioned this to another couple of people who came up to me and spoke from a model club who are a bit younger, a bit more open to it, and I happened to say to them, look, have you got any links with your local kind of FPV flyers? Because I tell you what, you would love it if you got air-to-air shots of your models, because it's the only viewpoint of them. You put it on the ground, you take pictures of it, but how about getting somebody in to actually chase plane you effectively with a drone? And they were like all over that like a rash. They were like, we never thought of that. They never think of that because it's not. It just doesn't register on the radar. Now, your standard off-the-shelf Mavic is not going to cut it.
It's not going to be fast enough.
it's a 400-foot tripod, let's face it, for most people. However, what you need is the people with the stick and rudder chops to follow you around. And a lot of these guys who spend hours and hours and thousands of pounds building these scale things, what better thing than for somebody to come along and go, tell you what, for half an hour, do you want me to follow you around and get some air-to-air of you? They wet themselves. And I think that's a great way of bringing the two sides together.
That is. I'm going. We've actually got a barbecue thing this weekend coming, this Saturday or Sunday, where it's lots of old boys with their scale planes, and they kind of. There's a couple of them who liked our drones and actually start flying drones now.
Is that the Dawn Patrol guys? Is it?
No, it's just at my local club just down the road.
Oh right.
There's some of them. They need a hug. They need Tony. They need some Tony love. They need a hug, and they just don't like drones. It's like, they're grass cutters, blah blah blah.
I think that's partly because they have learned how to fly the hard way, with many crashes and no gyros, and so they think that most of you go to Argos and buy something for 600 quid and just cause their hobby to die.
I was flying HQ props what snapped when they looked at a twig 3 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah, like me and Tony have definitely done it the hard way.
Yeah, we had no. Well, we've got to stop everyone there.
Money.
That is a double lighter from Slider FPV. Thank you very much, mate. You got a light 2 again, Jack. Thank you very much, Slider.
Guys, honestly, it stops Andrew Frank killing himself because he has to balance the books and HD
this
recording.
Helps us so much. Thank you.
We've got a really good editor, so if you listen back on iTunes at this stuff, woohoo!
And my fee is bloody massive.
Yeah. I'm going to run and get myself another beer.
Everybody's just found out about Simon's fee. Shall we start the show now?
Huge fee.
Yeah, what you're saying, Simon, about the old guys having this perception of drones is absolutely right. What it was is they just thought that nothing is flown; it just flies itself. You're not doing anything. That they hadn't taken into consideration. There is a camera drone, and then there is a sort of raced quad type thing, and lots in between as well. As soon as they knew that and knew what went into flying them and the sort of the skills you had to have, I think a lot of them were a lot happier with it.
I agree. I think a lot of the guys who've been doing it for donkey's years, they do see themselves as pilots, and they don't see the drone people as pilots in the sense of having that learnt skill that takes a long time to make. You cannot just get one and do what you do. You just can't do that. And I don't think they appreciate that, because most of the publicity and the advertising and the stuff that goes on the front of the Daily Mail when there's a near miss is the picture of the Phantom with the little eyes on, that somebody who put that up on the stock photo site is making a fortune. And it's all this off the shelf, flies itself. Oh, look, you just have to touch screen from here to here. And I get why they are very much looking down their nose at it, because there is no skill, is there? If you want to do one of a panoramic shot or a point of interest shot with a Mavic, you just press a bloody button. Whereas if you want to get some really sharp, keeping the frame, air-to-air footage of a scale model, you've got to work hard on those damn sticks, boys. So there is definitely a lack of appreciation for the hand flying side of the drone hobby. Having said that, I don't think we ought to denigrate the people who use the off-the-shelf drones as big tripods and glorified kind of stabilized video cameras, because there's no doubt that there's some cool stuff, some cool views of the world that come from that can be put in the hands of amateurs rather than pro filmmakers. So, however, there does need to be a little bit more understanding, I think, between those two strands.
It does.
RC and the modern.
Batwoman in the chat says we've blown the old boys' minds at our clubs just with the 4S batteries alone. The fact that we've built our own quadcopters from scratch, and the looks and comments I've had, as I'm a girl who can solder.
Yes.
So, yeah. Well done.
My daughter can solder as well. I think it's a very good life skill. And in fact, that's another thing that I think you guys, when I say you guys,
cheers, Bruce.
I mean, the people from the more the less off the shelf end of the hobby, one thing that's brilliant, I was working with a local school earlier this year. One of the design technology teachers approached me and said, could you help us run a little bit of a drone club? And they'd gone and bought these basic boards with basic frames. And then what they've done is turned it into a whole series of after school stuff where they learned how to 3D print and design their own frames for the boards. They learned how to fly, which was my very little input into it. They learned about branding. They had 2 teams, so they did like a logo and all this kind of stuff. And they just basically, the drone thing was a brilliant entry into, this was a girls' school, a brilliant entry into all sorts of STEM, science, programming, flying, design. And that is a fantastic, I think, a fantastic pro for the whole drone hobby, about getting people into, you know, like just even something which to you guys is second nature, but just, you know, okay, they've designed and 3D printed this little frame and they put it in, it starts to shoot off. So they need to tune everything. They need to get into the programming system and start to do some stuff. All that stuff with a purpose to win the competition or whatever is brilliant. And that
you keep saying you guys though, Simon, but I know from your early days of your channel, even when you were buying DJI stuff before the Phantom came along, you were building that stuff. You had the flame wheel, you had the nut, So I'm afraid you are us guys. you
know what, I wasn't. One of the whole reasons why I got into it and making a YouTube channel was sheer laziness, because I'd stopped. The last flight in my private pilot logbook was a week before my first child was born, and he's now 12 and a half, and so kids are expensive, and more expensive than airplanes. So I then wanted I always wanted to do fly stuff and that kind of view from above, but I was not technical. I saw people with the Phantom 1 soldering GoPros into it and adding extra things. I was not interested, and it was the Phantom 2 Vision, bless it, that got me thinking, wow, this is a sort of off the shelf thing that I could do. And it was only after that, actually, it was only after getting the Vision that I thought, do you know what? If I buy a flame wheel kit like this, which doesn't seem too difficult, maybe I can teach myself a bit more about how it works. And that was actually the trigger, having an easy entry point, and then having taken the bloody lid off the thing because I got bored typing out on those forums about what it was. That's why I started YouTube, because I was too lazy to write much.
Same here, and I'm dyslexic, so I can't spell that. And also you inspiring me, between you and Painless 360 Flight Test, Bruce Simpson specifically, because I was the same. I didn't understand how any of this worked, and then Hubson came out with their Spyhawk, and Bruce hated it, right? Because I think he understood the DIY aspect, very obviously knowledgeable on the DIY stuff, and he's looked at this Hubson Spyhawk and said it's a toy, you know. But I got it, and it just worked, and from that point on, I flew it. I did FP. That was actually the barrier, because I always flew planes, and I was dead against FPV as well. People would be surprised to hear, but I was like, that's not going to add anything. But then this Hubson Spyhawk was in Maplin, right? And I just bought it. It was on sale, and I instantly, everything just worked. And he gave it a bad review, and that was actually the start of my channel, because I was like, no, you've given it a bad review because you are sort of kind of old school, like the DIY aspect of it. This was perfect for me. And then that led me into investigating, okay, now I've got this thing that you can buy off the shelf. Let's figure out how it all works. And then that was the birth of my channel, you know. So yeah, it was your channel, Painless Flight Test, and Bruce, even though Bruce is kind of a negative one, but I still love Bruce. Bruce, he came actually in the chat last week. This is X chat.
Hopefully we can get him on.
Probably not now I've just said that, but Bruce, I still it'd be awesome to get you on.
I still love you.
Yeah, I think we all do in a way, don't we?
But it's interesting what you said, because I was going to get I was going to get one of those first, and then I thought, oh, I haven't got a useful field anywhere near me. And it was at that point researching alternatives because I
haven't got anyone to spy on.
Yeah, I like the FP. Yeah, exactly. There was no decent nothing around that I could really get a close up view. But it was looking around for alternatives, and then suddenly this kind of DJI Phantom Vision was coming out. So I went the opposite way around. But yeah, it was back then. If only we knew where we'd be now. Eh?
I mean, Spyhawk thinking at it now is the worst. Can you imagine?
I know.
Can you imagine if DJI came out with the Spyhawk to spy on people? Yeah. But funnily enough,
they should put like pictures of girls in bikinis on the front. Yeah. Like you could be looking at these without them noticing.
Drone.
Yeah, I love the Spyhawk so much that when they released the Hubsan H107D that did exactly the same, except it was a little tiny micro thing, I was sold. So Hubsan for me, even though
Hubsan taught me how to fly.
Yeah, most people, but it's a shame that they've not progressed like the other like DJI, for example. Man,
they made massive mistakes.
They did. The X4 Pro was announced and it was in progress for 2 years, and by the end of the 2 years the Phantom 3 just walked all over it, didn't it? So I
love my X4. I used to say to people, if you bought an off-the-shelf drone, get a little Hubsan and just practice, because I tell you what, after that, if you've bought a DJI, it's a piece of piss. However, back in the day, I remember doing a video about, and this is what people used to do: white drone, bloody milky white sky. They've got it at the edge of their vision. They can't tell what bloody direction it's going. Of course, there's no screen, no bloody. No. And of course, the stick and rudder skills that you learnt on your little Hubsan in where you're trying to dive bomb the cat get you out of a bit of shit, because suddenly if it is facing towards you or slightly acutely angled, you're used to that opposite control input and you can bring the thing back.
I flew those little Hubsans. I mean, I was doing building dives with them, like back in the day. I snapped an arm off it, and that's what made me take up soldering again. Because hang on, there was a guy who was it in the chat?
I used to take the flight controller and the motors, remove it, and put it on a picnic quads frame. That made it lighter, and then that started the whole mod.
Pimp your Hubsan.
Yeah, that was the basis of my channel.
I flew Phantoms and then I flew Hubsan because I wanted to fly properly, a proper acro-ish.
You could do like
no GPS hold and all that.
It was the GPS hold. They still had stability and stuff.
They did, and I flew stability for a long time.
Tony taught me how to fly acro. As much as the shit I give Tony, he is the reason I can fly. Fly acro.
So now when you look
yeah.
Now, when you look behind you, then Jack, do you feel guilty if he's the one that taught you how to fly? As I can see very clearly, it says Tony is gay on the.
Yeah, I'll always look.
I'm always happy, so that is right. That is a right thing to write on your. If you want to write Tony is gay on your wing, everyone could do it. I don't mind because I am happy. I'm happy at the moment.
He's so happy.
I'm happy with my life. It's
Ben
all
Sweeney said, as a 40-year-old, I had never held a soldering iron, and I found that the hardest part of the learning process. So,
Really?
Little weird fact about me is I always thought like soldering was really cool, but I was really awful at it. And for an art project, I had one of those like robots that like walked around with D-cell batteries, and it blew smoke out of its mouth, like the little like Nicron wire with the oil, the mineral oil, cotton wool. And I was like, man, it would be so much better if it had laser eyes. So I bought 2 laser pens and
blinded everyone.
This is health and safety time. Watch him when he looks at you in the eyes.
And fitted it inside the eyes of the robot, and I could never get the whole. Couldn't get it, like my soldering was so bad. I couldn't hook it up to the battery,
and then you would have got it right.
And I couldn't get it to flap on when it blew the smoke. So they were on all the time.
I want to bring things back on topic a little bit because
God's sake, I was enjoying that.
I watched the stream, Simon, that you did with the CAA at the NEC show. I think it wasn't the day I was there, and so like things like this £16.50 thing back then wasn't a thing, and basically what the message that I got from that is that the CAA at the time just wanted a online theory test that was going to be very easy. They wanted it to be like just basic questions, because if you had to answer 200 questions, they knew that people wouldn't do it. So that was their idea, just 10, very similar to the questionnaire that comes up now when you get a DJI. You know, if you skip it 5 times, it won't let you fly it or whatever. So that's something DJI brought in. But clearly there have been some changes since that seminar, and now the £16.50 thing. We had the BMFA on last week. They're trying to fight to sort of have that £16.50. They're trying to, I believe they're trying to act as an operator, so that if you're a BMFA member, then you won't have to pay the £16.50 fee. Have you got any information about what's going on? Because it all just seems like we've got no idea what's going on, and it's so close to November now as well.
No, okay. So first of all, I kind of, any regulator is obviously going to be in any industry is stuck between a rock and a hard place, because you're not loved by anyone. And for the CAA's point of view, obviously it was a political decision to have compulsory registration of drones, and the government, there was a consultation on it 18, which is why I must admit I'm slightly surprised at organisations like the BMFA being suddenly almost taken aback that this was happening, because it was always happening. So it must only be the price thing, which I think is probably the smallest part of the concern.
Yeah.
Concern about a registration system, which was announced and consulted on a while back, and is now been put in law and is going to happen. Then maybe 18 months ago would have been the time. Anyway, so the government said this is going to have to happen. As the regulator, the Civil Aviation Authority, and I didn't know this until I started talking to them. Very bizarre in the UK. So they're a pseudo governmental organization. The fact that they've got to do what the government says, but they've also got to cover all their own costs. That's why if you want a commercial drone operator's permit, or you want to start an airline, they will charge you X million pounds, because they've got to cover their own costs. They cannot rely on any government money. They've got to, it's called the user pays. That's the principle. So the government having said, right, we want a drone registration system, we wanted to have these 3 areas, you now need to run it and you need to cover the costs. And so what they've done is they've been quite open with this, because I don't know if you saw the other week, I did an interview with the deputy director of the CAA and asked him some of the questions that people had asked on the channel. And one of them was, well, where's this 1650 come from? And to be honest, they don't know how many drone users there are in the UK. So what they've done is they've taken the data from Canada and America and Ireland, and they've just extrapolated it out onto a per capita basis. So they've said, right, these are the number of people that registered with the FAA. This is the per head of population. This is the population of the UK. So we reckon if this number is right, it should cost £16.50 per person. If we're wrong and it's more than that, it will be less. If we're wrong and it's less than that, it'll be more. So that is where the £16.50 comes from. And the consultation on the price isn't we're consulting on whether drone registration should happen. That's a done deal. The consultation is, do you have a better way of allowing us to fix the price so it's most appropriate for the drone and unmanned systems operators in the UK?
And do you approve of this fee as well? Because I'm kind of torn. Like Jack's completely against it, but then
no, I'm
Jack's against the registration. I think the problem with that. Sorry to cut you off, Jack. Just because I didn't see the CA interview you did, Simon, but I think one of the issues I had with the findings of the costings was, what is this computer system that's going to cost this many millions, and why do they have to have upgrades for millions? It's like there's infrastructure already that exists. This is like most people sort of looked at it and said, this is a week's work for a contractor to set up a system like this. No one could really figure out why there's such a price behind it all.
Yeah, so and that was one of the questions I put to them, because it is key. You know, some people have said, well, I could knock this up on an Excel spreadsheet and run it for you, and I'll take half the money. Give me £500,000 and I'll run it on my laptop. So one of
I think Bruce said that actually, didn't he?
I'd be interested to see if we could put it out to Fiverr and see if someone could come up with that for us.
Yeah. Somebody in the Far East will probably do that. But one of the things that they've got to do, which I kind of understand, is that it's also linked into the same database. They've got to when you register, they need to confirm your identity. Otherwise, of course, I could register as you. So there's an identity verification part of it, which is and it's the same identity verification system they use for driving licenses and passports. So that's an element that isn't just as simple as, oh yeah, give us your name and address. There'll be some back office stuff.
There you go, Curry. See, Curry Kitten's idea. See, Jack said that in November, when this comes in, if he has to pay £16.50, he'll quit. And Curry Kitten said, well, I know your name and address, your mother's maiden name, whatever. I'll register for you. So
one of us is over at Jack's place often enough to nick his passport for a couple of days. It's not a problem.
I nicked his
driving license, you little dick.
And I've got pictures of that. For £10, I will send you a photographic evidence of what Jack looked like 5 years ago. It's worth the tenner.
Yeah, quickly register, put the number on it, fly it into Parkhurst Prison, and sit back and wait for the SWAT team to arrive at his house. It'd be perfect. So
my objection is the list. The sticking you on a Christmas list for the cops to work their way down.
Jack, you see, Jack's on enough list as it is. That's what he's worried about.
So if I'm going to be honest, I've got a couple of other hobbies, and if I think about what I spend on those, so like I'm looking over at a bit of this room which has got a few analog synthesizers stuck in it.
Yes.
And if
I mentioned this last week about other hobbies having fees, but anyways,
and okay, I don't have to pay anybody a registration fee or anything, but £16.50 is a drop in the fucking ocean for that. Yeah. And like, there's a couple of guitars hanging on the wall, and Jesus, don't get me started on that. And you know, we all suffer from, I think, no matter what hobby you get, there's GAS, isn't it? Gear acquisition syndrome, where somebody puts a cool video, a trailer on YouTube. You know it in this hobby. It's the DJI fanboys. DJI can drop a new product trailer for anything. It could be a bloody backpack, and there'll be a certain percentage who will go out and bloody pre-order it without even seeing it. Because
not a backpack like this that cost me 70 quid.
Just earlier in the chat, we had a link to a pair of Free Sky sunglasses. Would you believe?
What?
Or how about this
Free
lovely
Sky or Fly Sky? What
I should be wearing my DJI. I've got a lovely DJI one. Christmas just out of the blue sent me a pen, which was shit, but they also sent me a lovely DJI embroidered, very subtle polo shirt, which actually is one of the few polo shirts I wear, and I delight on wearing it whenever I'm going to go and see any other manufacturers. I took it to Unique once, which is quite funny.
I've got
I bet they didn't like that.
About 20 DJI bags, if anyone wants them. You know, the little rucksack things in white with DJI written on them.
Here's another one that I got sucked into because it's pretty. Yeah.
So in the scheme
handbag fetish.
Come on, Jack. You are the worst for that. You cannot. There are way worse ones that you've got than a handbag.
It's true. Andy's got so many bags that when Torval asked if anybody else would want to review a bag, and I said, Andy, did you want to get a bag from me? You said, I've got no more space for bags.
It's true. I haven't got any space for bags.
So I think on to come back to the point, £16.50. If look, my
not a lot of dough, is it really?
If you're flying RC anything, what can you buy for £16.50?
Props. I can't even buy one prop from. It might cover one prop for me.
You could buy yourself a nice firework on this show.
That's about it.
There's your £16.50 quote. It's not very
there you go.
No one's donated £16.50. like,
and the other thing is, I guarantee you, if it all goes through and it turns out to be 1650, some bloody retailer or manufacturer will turn around and will drop the price of a new whatever by £16.50 and say, we'll pay your registration fee for you. You know what I mean?
But I think for lots of people, and like Jack was saying, it's not about the money. It's about you're now on a list where people, or the police might just say, okay, we've had a drone sighting. Who's registered in the area? And of course, if they go to Jack's house and start opening his drawers, he's going to get arrested for all sorts of things. Let alone when they get
super arrested.
Could you imagine if they open that special drawer?
I
Jack?
tell you what,
I've had Gavin in my house. I've had Bradders. Do you know what I mean? They just
smells of ganja now.
I mean, the drug dogs would be all over that place, wouldn't they?
Will hump my leg.
I tell you what, I would pay double £16.50 to see what's in Jack's drawers.
Oh, that
pay triple not to.
I can't stand near it. He goes, get away.
I think also, regardless of the whole you being on a list or whatever, I think that's a daft argument, because if you drive a car, you're on a list. Anyways, it's the principle, isn't it? We for 50 years, for 100, in fact, the BMFA told us last year in 2022, it's 100 years of the BMFA. So that's a long ass time to all of a sudden have to pay £16.50. It's the principle. It's not just being on some kind of, sex offenders drone list. It's more about the principle of it.
I agree, but I look at it. There's a couple of other ways that I look at it. So from the BMFA point of view, what was really interesting last week, talking to this old guy. At the back of the CAA stand was what they call the drone code, which, as we know, is just a simple infographic about the key parts of the air navigation order. 400 feet, 50 meters, blah, blah, blah. Nice big thing. What was interesting to me was this old guy, the chairman of his local fixed wing club, didn't actually know half of the rules in the air navigation order that have been there since 1986. Because, as he said, well, I don't have to.
Donation alert.
Sorry, got to cut you again. Spider is banging it out.
Anytime Simon starts to say the meat of what we want
to know. Myself.
Sorry, but we have to do it.
Thank you, Spider
TV. Part of the show.
Mute yourself. Mute yourself.
All my 4S out, just in sympathy. Well, I've got no fireworks.
Light it. Light that 4S.
Shall I just nip away at it when we cut it?
No.
Take the balance lead off and connect the wires.
Who needs a balance lead? There's no balance in that thing.
What were we talking about?
So my point was, the guy who flies fixed wing in their little field that they've had for donkey's years didn't know half the rules, because, as he said, he doesn't really need to, because they don't bother anyone. They're far away from everybody. He goes round in a circle. He never goes beyond line of sight because he'd crash, etc., etc. So he didn't actually know half the rules in the air navigation order, which surprises me, because his initial argument was about, well, I've done my A test and my B test, and I've been flying for years, and I'm very safe, and da-da-da. But actually, he didn't know what the law was. Now, I know some things have changed, but that was point one. I thought that was interesting. But point two, I have found occasions in the past where having something that shows you have jumped through a couple of hoops to prove you know what you're talking about has got me into places where I wouldn't be able to fly. My local council, for example, I wanted to get up and do some really nice shots in winter from the local park. Now, I looked at it, I could do it legally, but they own the park, as a lot of parks are. And I happened to write to them and say, look, I'm a member of FPV UK. Here's my third-party insurance. I do this, I do that. I'm quite responsible. Could I please have permission to do this? I'm going to do it during the working day. The school's kids aren't going to be in it. I'm going to take these precautions. And they went, that sounds brilliant. Yes, you can. And by the way, if you get any good pics, can we have them for the town website or whatever? And I said, brilliant. And I've spoken to RAF Benson about it. And I think the fact that you've got something, if you are flying and you're doing it legally and you're absolutely fine, you've got the landowner's permission, all that, and plod rocks up because somebody who doesn't know, Mavis down the road, there's a bloody drone peeking into my windows and looking at me naked. If you can actually just whip out your registered pilot number and the fact that you're insured and you know what you're talking about, and you can talk confidently about why it's legal to be there, then the poor old PC who doesn't know the air navigation order from his mum is going to go, well, you sound like you're doing what you're talking about, sir. I'm going to move on. and you're
Yeah.
not going to get hassled. You're not going to get hassled. And actually, it might be a way of us all coming together and going, do you know what? We've all passed the competency test. Loads of us have insurance, even though we don't need to by law. We know what's what. We don't dick around on private land. So actually, local council who said we can't now use that bit of land, would you mind letting us, because, you know, we're the good guys? You might find it opens up a few more places to fly because of the knowledge.
It didn't with Hidden Valley, I'll tell you
Well,
that much.
well, Tony's got a better method. Tony, would you like to explain how you can very quickly get into a location that you normally wouldn't? I'm thinking about a farmer and
Your wallet and pull out a nifty.
I'll translate that. Tony says, "Here's 50 quid. Can we fly here?" And everybody says yes.
All I'm saying is, speaking to a couple of local people who run hot air balloon flights, they always carry 2 bottles of whiskey in the basket.
Yes.
Although balloons are allowed, you know, the law says they've got to come down when they come down. Obviously, if you've come down through somebody's summer crop and you've dented it a bit, and then you've got to get your recovery truck in, everything else. I tell you what, no, they've never had a problem giving a decent bottle of whiskey to the farmer and said, do you know what, boys? You know, you don't, it's not like you do it every week. If you go and annoy the same person week in, week out, they're going to tell you to jog on.
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah, I think I asked the BMFA last week about this because I wasn't sure, but how does I'm not sure if you know the answer, but how do balloon flights? Because clearly they go low, they go high. Do they have to have a NOTAM, or do they come under some different law or something?
No, same law, so they can't go into controlled airspace without contacting the relevant authority. A lot of them do carry radio now, and so technically, if they're approaching a bit of controlled airspace because the wind has blown them in that direction, they radio advance. And if the ATC says, "No, sorry, mate, you can't come through," then they will have to land early, or they'll have to change their height to get different winds. It's all about winds at different heights.
Well, I was just it was the height thing that I was mainly, because when we had the CAA on here, they said, "Oh, we're not concerned about jet airliners," you know, and you see all these videos, the Phantom 3s being blasted into wings, but the CAA came on here, the drone spokesperson for the CAA came on at Let's Drone Out and said,
yeah, we got on with him.
Yeah, he said, "We don't care. We're not bothered about what happens to a jet because they are way above the height and speed, you know, that we'd ever be bothered about. It was more about microlights and stuff like hot air balloons." And so that's why I asked that question, because hot air balloons, you know, are they obviously they have to land at a certain point. They rely on really calm weather. So they must have some sort of waiver to fly below 500 feet, I'm guessing. Is that right?
So, because they're not powered aircraft, because effectively if the 500-foot rule is ostensibly for things that can't glide. I mean, if you're at 500 foot and you've got a Lycoming piston engine in the front that throws all its conrods, you know, even the most modern aircraft that's a fixed wing glides, relatively speaking, like a brick. Whereas a balloon, as long as you don't run out of gas, you've got a relatively low, what's the technical word? There's a low energy kind of component to it because you're coming with the wind, and so. But there's also something called rules of the air, which is a bit like on the ocean, you know, like steam gives way to sail or something. Yeah. Balloons, basically everybody has to avoid balloons. Then gliders is the next one up. Then it's anything with an engine. So
wow, there's like a little food chain.
Yeah, all I'm thinking here now is, right, FPV balloons, no restrictions, no laws.
somebody clever at Duxford said, if I build a blimp and make it neutrally buoyant, it could be like 80 foot long, but as long as when I put it on the scales, it weighs less than 250 grams. Well, you know, I'm sure. I said, sounds good to me, but one thing I did think was that the government's probably got slightly more lawyers than you, so make sure of your science. But yeah, ostensibly 250 grams. I mean, that's the all-up weight for flying. So yeah, if you make something that's
not including fuel, apparently.
No, and I did speak to the CIA about that, and they said, right, this is good. I get this. So in aviation, the all-up weight is inclusive, is normally meant as an empty fuel tank.
Yeah.
If you're flying electric power, the battery is a fuel tank. So basically, you need to put the battery on empty, weigh it, then charge the battery up.
Well, there is. You can.
It's not fair.
What
It's
Tony's
not
trying to say
fair.
is E equals MC squared.
It's not fair though, because of that.
240 gram quad and then put a massive 4S monster battery on top of it. And that's because it's got to be, the battery is seen as the fuel tank. So of course they weigh the same empty as they do full. So that's how that operates.
Well, do they though?
So what we need is nitro quadcopters.
No, what you should do is just like have the battery, just the wrapper, and take the cells out, pull that bit out, and that's the fuel tank. I'll just lob the cells back in now.
Do it now, Jack. Let's test this. Go. Do it now. See if it
Give it a good yank.
They do actually weigh more charge.
How much more?
Is that
Like-
true? Is that true, Tone? Come on.
Tiny. It's
Micro
true. It's like true. It does
It's
actually.
like true, or it is true.
It is true. But
The
it's
other
like
side-
minimal stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be like nanograms.
You can't register it. Rome Racer in the chat said, Let's Drone Out was recommended by Joshua Barwell on his live stream this week.
Ah, awesome, man. Yeah.
What? Yeah.
Down.
Hey, Josh loves those guys. I went on Josh's live stream, and everybody went crazy, man. And they were like, "Get Josh on LDO, come on!" Yeah, so Josh.
He's
loves
allowed
it.
on whenever he wants.
Yeah, we've had him on probably 4 or 5 times now, but yeah, come on whenever.
I
Get him on for the
also
birthday sesh, I reckon.
this whole 250 gram thing is a bit daft as well, and doesn't make sense. I don't think. The reason I say that, and this is, I'm gonna plug a video that's gonna be coming out now, coming out soon by me. I've got a model here, right? It's a 3-inch model. It weighs 250 grams on the nose. It
With
does
battery?
6S lipo with a 6S lipo, right? It does 112 mile per hour tested.
So
Test.
that could kill you.
Yes,
That could go into a plane.
I would rather.
Strapping a knife to it would make it kill you easier.
I think
Yeah.
I'd
Way
rather.
over the top, you'd have to register it.
I'd rather a maybe kilogram quadcopter tapping me on the head than this hitting me at 100 miles per hour. So
Yeah, but they don't do the weight limit based on people. They do it based on could this take down an aircraft, don't they? Because it's like, how much kinetic energy do you need to take down an aircraft? You look at the mass of the model.
And you
that
still need to
doesn't-
not fly closer than the law states to people or objects not under your control.
yeah, that's
Even if it's
true.
a 10-gram drone. So
That's true. However,
But
I
it's-
do think
there's gotta be
flying
a
this.
cutoff. There's got to be a cutoff, otherwise, you're gonna. Where do you stop it? I mean, there's got to be an arbitrary limit. It seems to me that whether it's a conspiracy, everyone around the world seems to be zoning on this 250 gram. Is that because they've looked? I don't know how. Is that because they've looked at the average sort of toy drone weight and? But I mean, things like the Para. I was gobsmacked how close the Para Anafi, as an off-the-shelf little 4K camera drone, got to 250 stock before they even knew. It was like, it's 312 grams, and that's got like 25-30 minute flight time and can fly. It's Mavic type performance. So I'm not sure it will be too long if we get improvements in battery performance before you'll get very capable.
Oh yeah, well I'm all about the 3-inch. 3-inch is faster than 5-inch. It stops faster. It goes quicker. It's got a faster top speed, and you wouldn't have to register this guy. Video coming
Show
out.
me your 3-inch next weekend.
Yeah, well, you've seen plenty of my 5-inch Tone, so I'll show
That's
you.
what she said.
But as I've gotten older, 3 inches now.
Yeah, I know.
Where it's at.
It gets
Everything
that way,
gets
doesn't
smaller
it?
with age. Everything gets smaller with age.
And I can only manage like 2.5 inch, so it's really bad.
2.5 inch can still get the job done.
It can. This will do 60,
Randy's
but
married.
it won't make such a mess of anything.
I just want to read out something. Southwest Kitty says, "This is one of the best places to hang out. Everyone here is awesome." Thank you, Southwest Kitty.
I heard that the Late Show from Road to Riot was the best place. Have you seen that? Have you guys?
I saw the Skadoosh one. Yeah.
Yeah,
I did watch it.
It's good, isn't it? It's a good idea, actually. Yeah.
Boo Boo says, "Bright till I fly. My friend Tony is my wife." Yes. So
He's been watching the show too long, that guy.
and sundry. Yeah.
I was surprised, Tone. You showed that stage in your vlog, didn't you? You went over to Florida.
Yeah.
I was surprised they didn't do you. That would have been an amazing, like,
Oh man,
that would have gone viral.
A car crash.
You'd have got on and you'd gone, right, the earth is flat, I'm vegan.
You're all idiots. Carry on.
Everything's a hologram. We're in the Matrix. That would have been a great. Sorry,
I'm going back there in October. Wink,
What?
wink.
Yeah.
You know, could happen.
That'd be cool. So
Can I just bring us back to the topic that we had? Because I just
Please
remembered
do.
two things. One of the things that I think anybody who has an organization or a club needs to maybe look into, and this is not any inside information, it's just something that I've thought of. Obviously, you've got the two sides of registration. The pilot is free. You do your competency test. It's no money. The operator is the one with the charge. And you can be an operator with 50 drones. It's just one charge. Anyone who's got a club or an organization, if you look into somehow that if members, when they join you and pay their membership fee, sign over ownership of their drone to the club, then in theory, I don't see, again, go and see a lawyer. I don't see in theory why, as a club, you couldn't be the operator of all of your members' things, and basically you just divvy up the 1650 by. Now the downside is if someone in the club is a bit of a twat, you might.
There's always the twat.
There's always the twat, and that's where it's a problem. You might also find that your insurance company doesn't like that, but it's certainly an option for, if not maybe traditional clubs, but loose groups of people who have between them many drones. I don't know, maybe some sort of FPV fraternity of maybe looking at that. But you've probably got to have an element of trust. So that's point one. That's something I think that could be looked at, and I think the BMFA is looking at doing that.
Well, we had them on last week, and they pretty much guaranteed that if the 1650 was the price, they would do that. I brought up the question though: if you're the operator, then we could, if we put your registration number on the side of our copter, all it's going to come up with when the police find it, it's just going to bring up the BMFA. So maybe they'll have to come up with a different system of identifying individuals.
Well, you will have your pilot number. See, so there's a separate registration. So if you're an operator, you have to put the operator number on the drone. But as a pilot who doesn't own any drones, you have to do a pilot competency, and then you get a pilot number and presumably a little something you can print out and hand over to show that you are allowed to fly drones. So there's that side of it. The other thing as well is that everyone's got to remember is the £16.50 is based on the CAA's best estimate of how many drone operators there will be. If it turns out that everybody joins the BMFA and therefore there's only 2 drone operators in the country, whatever the £1.5 million will have to be divided by 2, and your next renewal registration fee might be 750 grand. So the system has got to pay its own way, and if more people register, they'll drop the price. If fewer, they'll have to up it. That's why they're trying to get an accurate number to make it a sensible thing, because
I don't think that number's accurate. Just from the number of people, we've got a local group here, and I can count on my fingers how many people are flying FPV in a city that has 1 million people. So if they've like taken figures from Canada and America, which that's just not the right number.
But it's also anybody who's bought a Phantom, a Mavic, an Anafi, any of the toy drones from China that happen to be more than 200.
Yeah, the people that aren't going to be aware that they need to register.
Now that is the other, that is the other part of it, the outreach thing, and that's one thing I was really happy to join with the CAA. And I was, do you know what? I was gobsmacked last weekend. The number of kids and people queuing up to have little bloody 15 quid pocket drones from Amazon or whatever. The number of people who I asked, have you ever flown a drone before? Thinking most of them, or at least half, maybe would say, oh yeah, I had a little go on a toy one. Less than 10% had ever touched one. Ever touched one. And loads of them were really, they were fascinated by them. Loads of them were asking, can I buy one? I said, no. They're just, but next time I must bring a container load. And there is that fascination with them. And all of the non-drone people I spoke to were actually, I thought we'd get like full of shit about Gatwick and, actually, if you weren't caught up in Gatwick, if you weren't affected by it, most of the people understood that drones aren't the problem. It's some of the twats that fly them that are. And
do you think that
to me that it wasn't an anti, the public in general don't seem to be generally anti-drone. It just they do.
No, they're definitely not. They're definitely not. But do you think the £16.50 figure would have happened if Gatwick hadn't have happened?
Yeah, it was already in the thing.
It was already in train. The 1650 is purely a mathematical.
Isn't it just to pay back the 2.9 million they've spent? It's
literally, this is how much it's going to cost to put it in place and run it. This is the number we think it might register. Divide it by everybody so it covers the cost. There's no margin for. I know a lot of people going, "Oh, bloody, somebody's making money," and I'm sorry, but
they're already in a deficit.
It's the CAA and the government. No one is lining their pockets on this one. So that's a false argument. But my concern is they don't have any better methodology of working out the price than literally using other places that have done it. And I get the feeling that our demographic is a bit different to that in America and Ireland. So we might all find that the first year it's £16.50, but we might also find that the second year that goes up. And then you see, under 20 quid a year. I think, okay, it's like anything else. I think eventually people will just get used to it and it just becomes what it is. I think if you start pushing it 30, 40, 50 quid, then you're going to get lots of people just going, I'm not going to register. And in all honesty, bearing in mind it's the police that have got to enforce this. They've got quite a lot of other things on their plate. I'm not sure.
And there's not many of them at the moment anyway.
That's my biggest annoyance with all this is that I've flown and police cars have driven within 10 meters of me flying and they carry on. And then when this thing comes into place, I'm like, are they going to stop every time I'm flying and check?
Mate, they ain't got enough time to do any of the regular police stuff. They ain't going to worry about us.
Yeah,
I think it boils down to if you're not I don't care where you are and what you're doing and what you're up to. If you're not impacting anyone who's not interested in what you're doing, then no one's gonna complain. It's going to be complaints that's going to get it. That's what's going to happen. So if you're flying in an area where technically and legally you shouldn't be, but you're doing it at sort of 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning because no one's there and you do, then that's different than constantly going down and flying in the park after the schools kick out day after day. Someone's gonna call the cops and say there's this idiot with that bloody whirling blades of death thing near my kid's head. So now what might be a good thing is those of us that kind of understand that aren't doing that currently. It's the kind of idiots that are going out and buying something off the shelf and being a dick with it that I hope actually people do report and they do get hammered, because the chances are they ain't going to have registered anyway. And even if they have, if a copper spots them doing it, that's it. They've bust the law. They're going to be done.
It won't be long till you see coppers learn that it's going to be the phantoms and stuff that they're going to go for anyway. They're just going to see. They're going to see FPP people with goggles on and just leave us alone and go, right, these guys know the rules. They're all good. They're just going to find.
Yeah,
they're going to learn.
Boxes at 9,000 feet, 20 kilometers coast, are you boys?
Exactly.
I'm actually hoping that it's not going to. I'm hoping that they don't bring out a Phantom 5, because at the moment the Phantom 4 is the poster child for bad drones, right? But if they discontinue the Phantom 4, I think the Phantom 4 is the most beautiful. Like, oh, I hate to use the word.
It's great to what he does.
It's the most beautiful drone that there is. But at the moment, it's the poster child for this is what a bad drone is. So I hope they discontinue it. Then the Mavic then becomes the poster child. Rich. And then I can fly my nice Phantom 4 Pro, which I love because it's I always turn.
They're good with what they do. I don't knock them for that. It's just dicks on the other end.
It's because you can go to Argos and buy one.
Yeah.
And that's that's the problem.
Don't do any research.
You've got to build something and put it together. You will take the
barrier
time.
to entry. And that's the elitism of the old boys with they ain't made out of balsa. Unless all your fingers have been stuck together, you don't deserve to touch the sticks.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You need to turn up with white socks and sandals and you're in.
Yeah. So when you turn up at Argos, that's where the registration process should
Maybe
happen.
so.
Yeah. Take the fingerprints, slap them about a bit, put them on the list.
Go through one of the scanners.
Yeah. Have an app so you know who are in your area.
Yeah. Put a collar around them. Yeah, that's it.
I know we're about to call time, but I found that number if you want it for the RAF Low Flying.
Oh yes, please. And
good number to have.
Stick it here.
So,
and I will put it in the description.
Cool.
Right. Thank you, guys. You've been listening to Let's Drone Out. Thank you for all the donation support, and especially to our Patreons. We might carry on this chat for a little bit more as a bonus chat on our Patreon. So,
if we were doing that,
has Simon got the time?
He might. I don't know. We might just hang out. I don't know.
We're into my overtime limit, so it's double time for me now, mate.
Yeah,
that invoice is getting very big.
We
can send you 2 sandwiches and another glass of wine.
We do a Patreon podcast sometime. Well, like once a month, and
I'll need a top up.
All right, go. We'll set it up and we'll chill. Anyway, so I think it's $3 or more gets you over there. You've been joined by Andy RC.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to my nonsense. I hope it was somehow useful in a way.
We've also been joined by Simon Newton.
Cheers, everybody. Have a lovely evening or morning or whatever it is in internet land.
Not on the kitchen table. My little wifey, Tony.
Bonjour.
And my mistress, Curry Kitten.
Goodbye.
Oh, mistress now.
Yeah, man.
Upgraded.
He's gone up in the world.
Yeah, totally. And I'm Bright Till I Fly. And Caretaker Frank, I hope you're feeling all right, buddy. Thank you and good night. Say bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.